Hey, hello, Graham.
Hello, Matty.
Hi, Harry. Hello, Matty. Hi, Len. Hello, Milan.
Right, brilliant. I think we're good to go. Now, I am recording now.
Right.
So I'm just trying to work out which view to put it on for the recording. But that will be fine, I'm sure. We'll give this a go. Anyway, thank you to Rod and Carol for joining us today. I've been involved with indoor rowing a few years now, and certainly this couple have inspired me. So I thought it would be a nice idea and like really interesting to hear about Carol and Rod's journey in sport. I know Rod is ever present on Facebook, giving advice and motivating people. So I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to for them to share their journey and for us to sort of gain from their wealth of experience. So today we're going to sort of chat about sort of their experience of different training methods, how maybe their trainings had to adapt as they've gotten older or matured, should I say. Nutrition, we're going to look at that, and really anything else that might benefit anyone here today. So first of all, guys, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into rowing, indoor rowing, and a bit about your sporting backgrounds, please?
Well, hello, everybody, by the way. Can everybody hear us? Put that cake down, Harry. You're making me hungry.
Oh, that's a bit cruel, that.
I know. He's waving a cake under my poor skinny little nose. It's not fair.
We'll get on to nutrition later, Rod.
Oh, blimey, yeah. Well, that's put me right off from the start, that has. But I'll do my level best. Cut a long story short, I started competitive athletics at the age of 10 and then continued right up till probably only a couple of years ago when I stopped running to concentrate on rowing. So I've always been a runner. And beside that running career, I was also, from the age of 11, a rugby player. And so rugby in the winter, athletics in the summer, up until about 40. Around 40, I retired from rugby and just carried on with the athletics, where I moved up to longer distances. So really, I've always done running. I've always done weight training to go alongside it. I've always enjoyed doing other things like cycling. I played a bit of soccer as a goalkeeper, played a bit of Aussie rules football, bit of Gaelic football. And then I met Carol. And then I met Carol. I met Carol when I was about 30 because her friend was going out with my rugby teammate. So you could say I met Carol at the rugby club. And once we became a couple, it coincided with the women's team starting up at the rugby club. So Carol joined in with the fitness sessions I was taking for the women's team. And next thing you know, she's ended up playing in the first game, ended up as captain of the team, and ended up playing representative level rugby. This all carried on together until we moved house to a little village in around about 2006 when we were in our late 40s. There was a gym near where we moved to. We joined the gym. Gym had a couple of rowing machines. We sat on the rowing machines. We had a competition between us. Carol beat me, which annoyed the hell out of me. And we've been bashing away at it ever since. And so there you go. That was about 13, 14 years ago. And that's here we are now, talking to you.
Brilliant. And I've got to ask you, I know you're both very modest people, but can you just tell us just a little bit about your sort of main achievements and what you're most proud of?
Of course.
It's quite hard to talk about them, really. I mean,
know, yes.
It's about being modest, but I think that sort of some of the things I've achieved, I know that there's people out there that are better than me in my category. They just don't bother to post their results, or maybe Oh, there's lots.
You've
Anyway,
got to
I know
be
who
in
they
it
are.
to win it.
So I've been quite fortunate, but we entered BRIC, or BERC as it originally was called, every year. And so I've won 9 of those gold medals for my age categories, and a couple of silvers. And we've also been to the World Championships. Well, I've been 4 times.
And she won gold 4 times.
And won gold 4 times. So quite fortunate on all those occasions.
And she set loads and loads of world records.
And I've currently got the 13 ranking distance British records, which it probably won't last long, but I'm enjoying it while I've got them. And 5 world records for the 60-69 age group. In the lightweights, mainly
Yes,
the short
indeed.
sprints and the marathon in the world records. Though there's a lot there that are just totally unachievable for me, but I'm picking off the ones that I can.
So what are your goals now, guys? Having achieved so much.
Well, I've come a little bit late to the very competitive side of indoor rowing, because I just didn't realise until I was 60 that I was in with a chance of getting very much. I did get a silver at BRIC in my 50s and a silver at the English Championships in my 50s, but I didn't. I mean, this is how naive I was. I turned 60 and I wanted to do a 60-minute row on my 60th birthday. And I thought, if I do well enough, I might get to the top of the world rankings, which will be a great bit of flannel for my non-rowing friends, because all my rowing friends will know that the fast guys are going to come along and knock me off. But it just happens that I've got there that day, which actually happened. And I was talking to some rowing friends who very kindly said, well done. And one of them said, well, you're not far off the British record. You only got to go another 150 metres. I went, really? I mean, that's how I just hadn't considered that I might even vaguely consider getting British records. So then I looked at them and I thought, well, maybe if I train specifically, I might get that one. And it just seemed to go from there. But I discovered some new training methods, which I think we'll probably touch on a little later.
This is it. This is what everyone's come for.
But yeah. I turned 60 and a few things came clear, which if I'd known before I was 60, I might have had more success in my 50s, but it all seemed to come together at the right time.
So, Rob, the big question, what happens? What was that light bulb moment when you hit 60 that transformed you?
2 words will sum up what I think the difference was, but there's a little story that goes with it and how I found out, because looking back, the answers to what I needed to do were actually staring me in the face, especially when you think I've got an athletics background, and guys like Arthur Lydiard and Percy Cerruti were giving this kind of advice out back in the 50s and 60s when they were coaching people like Roger Bannister to do their famous distance running, Peter Snell in the Olympic Games, 800 and 1500 meters. But really it all makes hindsight is a wonderful thing. But the 2 words are aerobic development.
There you go.
And the way it all came together was, and there are so many things have come together at a similar time. Turning 60, moving house, building our own gym out in the garden with 2 ergs in there, so retiring from work, all these things came together. But probably one of the most important elements of that package were an old rugby friend of mine came along to train. He sat on Carol's erg next to me. Now, this guy was not just an ordinary rugby player in his time. He actually was, like me, athletics as well as rugby. And in his athletics, he was a race walker. And he actually competed for England in the Commonwealth Games at the 50-kilometre walk. He was one of the country's top. So he was pretty hot on the physiology behind physical fitness. And he came along, and great to see him. We sat down, and he put on a heart rate monitor. And I said to him, oh, I've got one of those, but I haven't used it for years. I don't know much about it. The only reason I had one was because it came without the erg when we bought it years ago. So he had a heart rate monitor, I didn't. And I'm thinking to myself, who needs those who needs those gizmos? Who needs gadgets? I don't need all that. And we talked, and he talked to me about something called the Mafitone Method, which is where he does long rows at a low stroke rate and a low heart rate. And he said to me, you can't train too slow, but you can train too fast. And I thought to myself, what a load of rubbish. I thought I'm going to influence him by doing a lot of faster training. I'll probably get him to be a lot better.
So was your training mentality before this, Rod, very much train hard and...
Yep, train as hard as you can, as often as you can, go as fast as you can. Actually, I'm exaggerating a bit. I did do some in between.
It was like that. That's how it was when we started. We both did exactly the same sessions. It was almost like we were competing against each other every single training session. It was flat out, it was eyeballs out, it was falling off the erg at the end. Just exhausted all the time. But we got by on it for a few years when we were young enough to be able to. But as soon as we got older, we were finding injuries started to set in, and it was just, we were tired all the time.
A bit like how I used to do some of my old track sessions when I was a sprinter. And that's where we were. My friend was talking about aerobic development, Mafitone Method, long and slow heart rate. I was talking about short, sharp, fast, more effort. The roles were reversed. Instead of me influencing him, he influenced me. Because I read up on what he told me, I tried one or two just to see what it was like, and a whole new world opened up. So I stuck with it, and next thing you know, all my times were improving. And it was the only thing that I'd changed was I'd gone from going mad, hard efforts all the time to the long, slow ones and looking at my heart rate. I'd educated myself a little bit better by reading around the whole thing, but my times just plummeted. Yeah. And I beat a couple of British records at shorter distances, even though I've been training at these great long distances. And it all went on from there. So that's the answer to your question, Heidi.
Fantastic. And Carol, did you follow a similar path?
Well, no, I thought it was rubbish what he was doing. And I was totally entrenched in a plan that it's within Sub 7, one of our club members has devised training plans for the different distances, and I really enjoyed them. There's a huge variety of different stroke rates, different paces. I mean, just different sessions all mixed up, and there was so much variety there that it just suited my training mentality. So I persevered with that training plan for 5 years, and it did okay for me. But that's when I started to get injured, and that's when I really thought, I've got to do something now. I've got to change the way I'm training, because I was still training too hard. Even though I was enjoying it, it was not flat out every session. There was limitations, but not sufficient limitations.
And I suppose, does that also sort of come with age? Like, you know, as you get, have you found that as you have matured, you have had to sort of look after your bodies and respect them a bit more, and focus maybe a bit more on recovery? Because I think as youngsters, we all think we're indestructible, and then suddenly realise it catches up with us in the end. So
I certainly overdid it when I was younger, and I'm very grateful that I've learned not to overdo it now that I'm older. So I think the actual realisation that I'd got the whole lot wrong anyway didn't come too soon. But now that you know, I am in advancing years, then I do take more notice of the recovery aspects. Although I work with a coach now who's very hot on recovery.
Yes, I think so we all share the same coach, and that is how I've obviously met Carol and Rod properly, and that's obviously through a guy called Eddie Fletcher.
Eddie's very hot. Very hot on recovery. So fortunately, I take I do as I'm told. So I'm actually, now that I'm an old man, I'm told to take it easy, but I thoroughly concur, and I do appreciate that. I think the older we get, the smarter we need to be, because we don't need to drop off that much.
So how has your training changed as you have sort of gotten older? Have you had to focus on obviously recovery a bit more, but has your volume dropped, or just it's more manageable now?
For me,
Yeah.
my volume of training is the same. I've always done round about 4 sessions a week. That's probably as much as I want to do.
And is that
And
just on the erg, Carol, or do you still
that's
enjoy
just on the
running?
erg. I still think I'm indestructible, despite the fact that I'm learning, but very, very slowly. I do still do stuff on other days, but not intense anymore. Everything I've reined back. So I run still on the days that I don't erg, but I run slowly, steady, and I just those are the two main things. And if I am tired, I will take a day off now. Whereas before, I saw it as a weakness to do that, and I wouldn't allow myself. Now I just accept it. Got to be done. Yeah.
The biggest change for me is I've had to give up running because I just didn't have the energy to run and to row properly. So one of them had to go. So I packed up the running. I haven't run a step now for over 2 years, but I do enjoy going out walking because we live in a rural area with lots of lovely, nice, beautiful views and footpaths. So I do walk.
Certainly improved your rowing.
I would say the whole package helps, but the most important thing is the rowing sessions. The walking, the cycling, the weight training, all help to back it up. But all of them have eased back in certain ways because of the aging process. But I think, in all honesty, it's helped me improve results because I was overdoing it when I was younger. End of story.
Yeah. Right. I'm just actually looking at some questions that are coming in. What about weightlifting? Do you incorporate that into your training regime? Both?
Well, I used to do it. I used to do sort of plenty of squats and general sort of shoulder work and push-ups and so on. And I've been doing that for quite a number of years. But it was only recently, and I was suffering injury quite badly for quite a long time. So it was about 1.5 years worth of back trouble and rotator cuff on both shoulders and neck problems all at the same time. So I stopped weights completely, took up Pilates. So
Has that helped?
It's
I'm
helped
a big
enormously.
fan of Pilates, yeah.
It's helped enormously. I've got a really good teacher, and she used to dance in the Moulin Rouge. So I still can't do the can, but I can. I have got incredibly strong core muscles now, and the flexibility, hip flexor work we do a lot
Brilliant.
of, and that has just been an absolute godsend. And I think that my injuries, even though I needed a little bit of help from an osteopath and sort of massage therapy, that started the recovery process, but the Pilates has really pushed it on an extra level. Right. And keeps the injuries at bay now. It seems that they're occurring less and less frequently. So I'm hoping that that's what the answer is. But I do need to pick up weight training again at some point. But
yeah,
I'm an avid weight trainer, and I've used weights in my training since I was 14, 15 when I was taught how to do them at school. I've done weight training instructors courses, and I trained at a bodybuilder's gym at one point. Right. And not to confuse the issue, but at one point in my athletics career, between the ages of 28 and 40, I was actually a hammer thrower because I put on rather a lot of weight for the sprinting and was getting a bit slow. And I actually probably scored more points for the club as a hammer thrower than I did as a runner. But when I got to 40, I lost a lot of weight and went back to distance running. But that's by the by. But yes, I find that weight training is very helpful. We've got a fully stocked gym out there. And when I designed it and filled it up, I made sure we had the right weights. Do squats, pull-ups, curls, sit-ups, all the usual combination exercises, compound movements. But I don't do them to absolute failure anymore. That's the difference.
You live and learn.
I do.
Carol, I'm just interested because obviously as a female and as we get older, it is really important to try and retain our muscle mass. Just interested, since you have stopped weight training, have you noticed a difference sort of in your body, in the power you're able to produce on the rower?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And I was, not only that, I was also training on a higher drag factor. So I did everything on about 130, 135 drag. factor.
Gosh, that is high.
For sort of 10 years of my training, or 11 years or so. But
I'm surprised Rod didn't have an influence there.
He was always trying to tell me, but we don't listen to each other.
She won't listen to me.
Very true.
But I was definitely more muscular then. And since I stopped the weight training, and it's probably a combination of things, it's that, and also since I retired, I can't sit still anyway. I'm the type of person that always has to be doing something. And while I was working, I was, sort of desk bound for quite a bit of the time. And now I'm not. But I think mainly it's the weights as well. I've lost muscle mass and lost about, I don't know, sort of a good 6 kilos in weight. Which puts me to, I'm a very lightweight. I need to really bulk up by another few kilos to sit on the border of 61.5 kilos. Whereas, at the moment, I've noticed I've tried to do some sprints, and whilst I can get close to the times I think I should be able to achieve, obviously not what I could do 10 years ago, but a realistic target, it just isn't happening at the moment. I just don't feel that I've got that extra bit of, oomph. That's right, that the weights I think will give me. So that's why I'm hoping to pick them up and then take things on another step further.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see when you do put them back into your training plan, how it does translate across to the rower.
Mm-hmm.
I've just seen another question coming in asking about heart rate. What sort of range do you work in, Rod, for your aerobic?
Well, the work that I'm currently doing is set by my coach, as we mentioned earlier, Eddie Fletcher. And Eddie is a real scientist. So he has me working at a combination of rates, of heart rates and stroke rates. And I couldn't possibly even begin to explain what the science is behind what I do. So it would be false of me to actually say this is what I do on a regular basis, or this is not what I do on a regular basis, because it's all contained within the science of what Eddie gives me.
You trust
to answer because he's the coach, and although he's very approachable, so I would recommend if anybody wants to go to his website and contact him, then he'll be delighted to talk to anybody. However,
I was just going to say, I had a chat with Eddie yesterday, and I'm very honoured to say he's actually agreed to do an interview. So watch this space, guys. Eddie will be being interviewed by myself. So get your questions ready.
Well, just to answer the question though, and I'm not sidestepping it. Yep. If we go back to, because I think I'm quite well known on Facebook for recommending certain things, and if I go back to when I was supervising my own training, when I was doing the aerobic stuff, I followed the work of Philip Mafitone and Stephen Seeler, where I looked to do about 80% of my work in the UT2 heart rate zone, which is below 70% of your maximum. And I looked to do about 20% of my work above that, and almost flat out if it was maybe just one speed session a week. So hopefully that answers the question, going back into when I was supervising my own. But the combinations I have now, I'd be lost at trying to explain it, but there we go.
Great stuff.
I think the key, sorry Heidi, I think the key thing though is that all of our training is done with a heart rate cap.
Yeah.
All of it. So and I think that's the key thing. It's Eddie knows where to set that cap such that you're training smarter. You're not wearing yourself out constantly. You've always got enough energy to go into the next session, and so on and so forth.
And one point I would add to that is that, as I'll probably touch on later, I tend to work in projects. My current project is to get into shape for 100k on my birthday on the 19th of September, which I know we may well touch on later.
That was my next question, Rod.
All right, well, you beat me to... I mean, earlier, going back a few months, I was training for the 2K, getting ready for Paris. Then I was training for the half marathon British record attempt. Then I was training for the marathon British record attempt. Now I'm going on to 100K, where I'm hoping it's a world record attempt, fingers crossed and what have you. But after that, I'll then be coming back down to the marathon, then back down to the half marathon, then back down and try and improve my British record for the 1 hour. And eventually I'll end up back at 2K again. All these are projects. All of them have different heart rate caps, stroke rate caps, endurance periods, and so on and so forth. So there's no general answer. So the answer that I gave for when I was training under my own steam with the UT2 work and the work of Sailor and Mafitone. Mafitone and Sailor are both people that I would recommend people look up their work, because you'll get great answers and great ideas from that. Sorry to waffle on, but that's...
No, you waffle away. My dinner's not ready yet, Rod, so you've got plenty of time to waffle. I'll let you know when I can smell my burnt roasties.
Oh, right.
It's time to cut it off. That's brilliant. So, training for a 100K event, Rod, what does that entail? How does that differ to training, for example, for a 2K?
Well, one of the things that I've discovered since turning 60 is that I'm probably more of an endurance athlete than a speed merchant, which rather proves that I wasted a lot of my athletic career doing 100 meters and 200 meters with my main event, which was the 400 meters, when I should actually have been doing the 800 meters alongside my 400. Because Eddie gave me some fitness testing, and I went off some of the scales for my age and weight category, but it showed that I was more of an endurance type of physiology. So as I've gone up the distances, I've actually found them more natural to what I like to do. So the training for the 100K, as I'm sure will come as no surprise, is lots of long, slow sessions. But they are capped at certain stroke rates. So instead of just thrashing away up and down the rail, I actually do them at a much lower rate. So I'm there for a long period of time, just pulling the handle reasonably hard, as opposed to whizzing up and down. It's just lots and lots of long work. It's about transporting the oxygen around the body, but it's actually a lot of rest as well, because I don't go into the sessions unless I've had a decent recovery.
And so, are you just working on the rower at the moment, Rod, or do you supplement it with, say, for example, watt bike sessions? I know Eddie's a big fan of
Eddie's a big fan of the watt bikes, but no, I'm not touching the watt bike at the moment.
Right.
The weather's too nice, so I'm going out for a walk. If it's cold, wet, and winter, I'll go in the gym and I'll sit on my watt bike and I'll put my earphones in and I'll get lost and I'll in my little world and thoroughly enjoy it. If the sun is shining, I'll go out and walk around the country lanes and footpaths and look at the scenery. Neither of them are great things for fitness as such, but they're good fun to do. They're good calorie burners for weight management, and also I still do the weight training. Weight training I do all year round. So
and how many weight sessions do you do a week, Rod? 2
a week, all round body.
Right.
So just each body part gets worked twice a week.
Okay.
So squats are twice a week, chest is twice, so on and so forth.
Brilliant. And so your 100K that you're aiming for, what do you need to achieve that record? What are your splits that you're aiming for?
Right, the world record, which is held by a good friend of mine called Joe Keating, and it's probably a good opportunity to say that Joe is such a wonderful sportsman that he's wished me good luck in doing it as well, when you think it's his record, and he's given me some notes and tips on what he did to prepare for when he set the record. Now, what a gentleman that is. It's that's really sums up the erging community. I think we all help each other out.
Yep.
But the split time, the average pace is 2 minutes 10.5 seconds. So I have to row at faster than 2 minutes, 10.5 seconds for somewhere in the region of just over 7 hours. The record is 7 hours, 15 minutes and some seconds. Now, the obvious question there, and you may be you're too much of a lovely lady to ask, maybe, so I'll actually volunteer the information. I knew this would happen. There's a doorbell ring. Can you go and answer the door? Yeah. Because I'm mid-float. Got a delivery coming, would you believe? What happens if I want to tinkle?
You must have read my mind.
Yes, well, if I want to tinkle, you lose 1/10 of a second for every 20 seconds you're not rowing.
Right.
And I reckon a tinkle, because what'll happen is I'll have the erg in the kitchen, not in the gym.
Right.
I will have a tiddle pot, if you like, a jar.
This might be too much information.
Nearby.
It's definitely too much
nearby. So I can stand up.
Shall we just stop there?
Do what I have to do, sit back down again and carry on rowing. I think I've tested it, and I can do the whole thing in just under a minute.
You better get some training in, Rod. See if you can speed up that process.
Well, I'm an old man, and that's a difficult thing to do. But what it means is that I will probably lose 0.3 of a second from the average each time. Now, Joe said to me that he only had to go the once during the 7 hours. Let's just say I have to go, so I would imagine I wouldn't have to go more than probably twice. So the chances are that that's 0.6 of a second. So really and truly, I need to be safe. I need to be chugging along around about 2:09.5. There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, Carol, can't have Rod stealing all the limelight. What are your current goals?
Gosh, I've been sort of feeling my way a bit this summer and working out what to do. And I've just picked off a couple of British records that I'd set last year to try and beat those. And I've done the 30 minutes, so I managed to improve on that as I'd wanted to. And I've got a 6K next week or the week after to also improve on and just see what happens. And after that, I'm undecided. I'm certainly not doing 100K, that's for sure. At least I say that now. You can bet your life, once Rod's done it, I'm going to think, well, I can't have him doing something that I haven't. So I may well embark on that. But at the moment, it just fills me with horror. But then we're getting into 2K training season. So I'll probably just revert my training to 2K specific and see what sort of competitions are going to come up this year.
Right. Okay.
Which rather leads, now that we're talking about 2Ks, I'll be 63 in September, which means I've got 2 years to get ready for an attempt on the British 65 to 69 2K record. Because
always planning.
It's not well, the thing is, it's like a carrot dangling in front of me because it's outside 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Now, I would hope I can get under 7 minutes for 2K in 2 years' time. I mean, it's almost September, so hopefully in 2 years that'll be a target for me. But you've got to do it in a race. So I'm going to have to do the British Championships in 2023. So I'll see you there.
You might well do. So what does keep you motivated?
Gosh.
Well, I wouldn't know anything different because I've been like this since I was 11 years old and I started athletics.
Right.
I'm actually I actually find that I define myself by a series of times or statistics, and those are how fast, I mean, it used to be, how fast can I run the 400 meters? Can I get under 12 seconds for the 100 meters? Can I get under 2 minutes 10 for the 800 meters? And what are my training times? And that's all I ever thought of. I mean, how was the rugby team doing? Were we going to win the cup that year? Unfortunately, I've found a sport that enables me to think the same way. So if I'm not thinking about what are my times on the erg for 5K? I mean, I'm doing a 10K next week because I can't go too long without a time trial. So I've got permission to do a 10K next Thursday. All these things, they occupy my thoughts. If I didn't have them, I just don't know what I would do. I don't know any different. Honestly, I don't. So all the time I'm keeping body and soul together, then I just think, well, it'd be nice to do this and it'd be nice to do that. Honestly, I just wouldn't think any differently. I just don't know.
It's a way of life.
I say I'm not quite as religious about it as Rod. In that we've been doing it for what 13 years now, erging regularly and without breaks. That's, you know, even when we go on holiday, it's let's go somewhere where they've got a bit of a gym and a couple of ergs or something. Absolutely. You just don't get away from it, and it is starting to, you know, sort of catch up with me, I think, somewhat. But I think the thing that really helps to keep the motivation is being part of a group or a community. You know, we've got the Facebook forums, groups, clubs, you know, the indoor rowing clubs that people belong to. And I think that is just such a huge motivator for most people. You know, if you check in regularly and post what you do, and you get so much back from it, that's, I think, the one thing that really keeps me going now, that my initial enthusiasm has, you know, sort of waned a little bit. And also taking up a new training program, see where it's going to take me. I don't know at the moment. You know, I've done some things that I think, well, that's not bad for my age, you know. Perhaps I can do a little bit, you know, you always want a bit more, don't you? So, yeah, so see how far it can take me.
The community is a big help, because if I've spoken to somebody about some aspect of training on the Facebook groups, and they come back a few days later and they've put up a good time, then I get, because I've got an interest in that person, then I get a thrill out of seeing it. Yep. I mean, there's a new lady in the community called Kim Crichton, who is putting up PBs. She's putting up, she started off saying she was new and oh hello and what have you. Next thing you know, she's what? Christ, I mean, she's improving. She just knuckles down, does the training, and she puts up a PB. And I go, hey, look, she's done a PB again. This is great. And there are other people as well. I mean,
I'm glad she looks much younger than me, though. That's for sure.
There's various people put up good times, and I get a kick out of that.
Fantastic. Actually, Kim did have a question. And she apparently is going to reach her first 1,000,000 meters on her 50th in September. So congratulations for that.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Another September birthday. Good.
Indeed. And she was looking for your advice as to a good weekly workout to keep her fit and interested.
Well, when this conversation's over, I will message Kim, because it depends what she wants to do. But I would strongly suggest that if she's going to be 50 in September, then we really want to be looking at a 50-minute row, don't we? 50 minutes at 50.
Yeah,
but what's close?
60 or 70.
Yeah, but close to that would be 10K. So we'll come up. I would think a good session for 10K would be something along the lines of 8 repetitions of 1,000 meters with 1 minute in between, repeated once a week for 3 weeks. And there you go to answer the question. We'll be looking for a 10K PB on the birthday in September to be done in the morning, so that the rest of the day can be spent eating cake.
There you go, Kim. The oracle has spoken. Right. Speaking of cake, let's move on to nutrition.
Yes.
So obviously both of you are lightweights.
Yes.
So nutrition probably does play quite a big role, potentially. Rod, I know you used to be a heavyweight, so perhaps you can tell everyone, you know, how you went from heavyweight to lightweight, and actually managed to even improve your performance, because I know a lot of people want to lose weight, but then, you know, it's balancing out between then losing power on the rower.
Well, that's a very good point. I did lose power when I went from heavyweight to lightweight, because my 2K time is not as good as it used to be. and it was a bit of a drop off. But next to that, I need to make the point that my training was incorrect anyway. So it's hard to say exactly what caused what, but I used to sit around about 79, 80 kilos, which isn't very heavy for a heavyweight. And it just never occurred to me to try and go for lightweight. Again,
for those unfamiliar with the weight categories in rowing, what do you have to be a lightweight male?
a lightweight male, regardless of age, is 75 kilos,
right,
or which translates into 165 pounds.
Thank you.
So I used to sit at around about 175 pounds, 79 to 80 kilos, but it never occurred to me to get to try any lighter. I was running quite well on that weight. But again, someone said to me, look, have a look at these ranking lists for the light. You're a heavyweight, but look where you'd be if you were a lightweight. And as I said earlier, I tend to define myself by what sort of times I can do, but also where I am in the ranking lists, because I've been looking at athletics ranking lists since I was an under 14. So to look at the Concept 2 ranking list is something I've been doing ever since I started. It was very depressing when I started because I was always near the bottom. So all I ever wanted to do was climb up a little bit and just thought that the top was another planet. But then when they showed me the lightweight ranking lists and said you could be close to the top, I thought it was well worth it. So what I did was I counted the calories and worked out what would be a healthy calorie budget per day. So much coming in compared to so much going out. But I made sure that the calories were made up of healthy food. So I got rid of all the sugar stuff. I stopped eating Frosties, cornflakes, ricicles, and replaced it with bananas. And I got rid of the ice cream and replaced it with yogurt. And I got rid of the chocolate and the sweets and replaced it with sugar-free gum. So changed a few things over, and I just couldn't believe it. The weight dropped off. The weight dropped right off, and I've always sat quite happily below 165 pounds, below 75 kilos, quite comfortably, and can eat quite well, and I'm quite satisfied and have no bother with it.
And how tall are you, Rod? I've just seen a question come in.
Oh well, that's quite helpful to be a lightweight. I'm only 5'8".
Ah, right.
So I'm not very tall.
So no extreme dieting then, Rod?
Don't need to. No, absolutely not. In fact, extreme dieting would be counterproductive, I would think. I would feel too weak.
Indeed.
I wouldn't try anything faddy or...
I believe, because I've been a follower of yours on Facebook, and I noticed, was it about a year ago, you tried keto?
I did. I've tried various things and made many mistakes and this was one of them, because again, friends had recommended it, said that you don't get hungry, you got more fuel, and I read up on the science of it, and it seemed to make some sense in certain areas. So I gave it a try, and it worked well for weight control. I did come down a little lighter, and it did work well for being satiated, not hungry, because you're using your fat for fuel the whole time. So your food is there the whole time. And that was quite nice. And I thought, well, it's working. But unfortunately, my training performances just dropped off a cliff. I became slower. I couldn't hit the targets. I became a lot less of a rower. So I thought, well, this is no good. And gave it up as a bad job. So the difference being that if you're looking, I'm sure keto works for certain people in certain circumstances, but if you're an athlete in a sport where you have to perform at a certain level on a regular basis, glycogen is a far better and more efficient fuel than just fat. Good to be fat adapted, good to have it as an extra gear. There is a lot in all that science that I think does work, but pure keto for me didn't work. So I quickly stopped it and went back to the carbohydrates, which I love so much.
And I think also one other thing that helped with that decision to stop, I wouldn't touch those sorts of diets, but to stop the keto diet, was trying to find out, well, which top athletes use that diet, and we couldn't find any that were, you know, significant. And think, well, if there's something to it, surely they would have explored it and adopted it by now.
Yeah.
So that made the decision to stop experimenting with keto quite easy.
And everything in moderation.
Yes,
Keto,
probably the case.
Keto's a bit extreme, so
Yes.
I mean, I get the right mixture now of carbohydrate, protein, fats, minerals. It's all there. It's all healthy. But I absolutely adore fruit and yogurt. I wouldn't want a bowl of ice cream. I would want a bowl of fruit and yogurt. If it's my birthday and I want a treat, then I would still make sure I have my fruit and yogurt because I love it so much. I think the treat would be I could have a wee bit more.
And what's
There you go.
just seen a question come in, Rod. What does a typical sort of week look for you, nutrition wise? And do you take any supplements?
No supplements. No, the only supplement I might have is a protein shake because it tastes so nice and flavours my porridge. So, because I'm a big, or oatmeal. I'm a big fan of oatmeal, but I like to flavour it with the protein shake that we discovered at a gym we were using. It was just so tasty that I use it more or less as a flavouring. But of course, it does allow me to. I do count the calories that are in there. It's 4 calories per gram. And also it goes towards my daily macros as to how much protein I'm getting per kilo of body weight. But a typical day would be, I mean, for breakfast, I'd probably have oatmeal, porridge, and lunch, I'd have skinless chicken in a bread wrap, half a bread wrap because I don't need the whole one. Lettuce and cucumber go with it. And the thing that really tops it off that I can recommend to anybody is red pepper, sliced red peppers. Sliced red peppers help to lubricate the chicken and wrap. It's such a wonderful combination.
There you go.
That's breakfast and lunch, and then in the evening, 3 meals a day. In the evening, I'll possibly have some mashed potato with sprouts and maybe a can of meat from the supermarket, or some not can of dog meat, just ordinary meat.
Looks like it.
It looks like it, yeah. Marks and Spencer's do a nice one.
Carol, you
Or
don't
fish.
follow the same diet.
No, I don't. I don't eat.
No, we don't.
I don't eat what Rod eats at all. We eat totally different foods.
Fish or chicken in breadcrumbs, and then
Yeah.
after that, I'll have some bananas with some yogurt on it, or grapes with yogurt on it, or mandarin pieces with yogurt on it, or yogurt with more yogurt on it.
You like
And then
yogurt then, Rod?
Then some sugar-free gum. I mean, I look like a pot of yogurt, I think.
Rod's very faddy, and he tends to stick to the same types of food. I mean, I'm similar, I suppose, in some respects, but
I don't get bored.
yeah,
I like boring
tends
things.
to repeat, don't you, the same foods over and over. But Rod also doesn't like a lot of the things that I think are an important part of diets, like eggs and
I hate eggs.
oily fish and so on. He won't touch it. So
I can't eat baked
yeah.
beans. I can't eat cheese, and I don't drink alcohol.
Ah, there you go. There's the big.
Well, that's not for my benefit. That's for the benefit of mankind. That's for the benefit of the rest of the planet.
Real. I'm just actually looking at questions coming in.
Yes.
In your opinion, what is the single most important factor for improving performance on the erg for a man in his late 50s? Is it volume of training or intensity? And how many days a week do you guys row?
To answer the first question, I would suggest for a man in his 50s, the most important thing would be to do a decent amount of volume at a low enough stroke and heart rate, and then add in a little bit of faster work. It depends what that person was trying to achieve. But as a general rule, if that person was doing 4, 5, 6 sessions a week, then 3, 4 of them would need to be long and slow at below around 18 to 20 strokes per minute and below about 70 to 75% of maximum heart rate, I would say. Then maybe a session or 2 of faster stuff. That would be the most important.
Thank you, sir.
But I don't think the volume, the number of sessions is the most important aspect of it. I think it's doing the right thing on the sessions that you do. So, you know, Rod's talking about sort of 5 or 6 a week. I think personally, I think that's too much, and I think that if you can do 3 as a minimum, you will improve. And I think if you do 4, then you'll improve a little bit more. Do any more than that, and you're in danger of getting those repetitive strain injuries. Even if you do lower the intensity, I think
the more the sessions, the easier they need to be.
Right. And how many times do you guys row a week?
I only do 4 sessions a week. I won't do any more than that, and then, you know, do other training on other days if I've got the energy.
Depending on what I'm training for, I mean, the most I would ever do would be 6.
Right.
And the fewest I would do would be probably 3 or 4, depending, different things on different weeks. But certainly, whatever I'm doing, I would always want to see for myself 1 complete day of rest away from the erg, because it's very intense no matter how you do it.
That is when we get stronger.
It is.
That's when the adaptations take place.
The body knits together and grows while you rest.
If only you could see it happening, it would be more believable, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be easier to do for sure.
It would, yes, yeah.
Bro, actually, speaking of rest, I've got a question come in. What does a typical vacation look like for you guys? Do the ergs come with you?
The ergs don't, but we sometimes hire bikes.
Right.
Most of our holidays have either been running holidays, so go run a half marathon, you know, in Prague or something like that.
City breaks for half marathons have been great fun.
Cycling holidays, like, you know, Land's End to John O'Groats.
We did coast to coast. We built a couple of holidays into the United States when we did the last 2 World Championships in the United States, and they were just sightseeing, looking around New York. So a lot of traveling around on buses and trains, and also in Los Angeles, sightseeing buses and what have you. So we've been all over the world. We've been on safari in South Africa. We've travelled in northern British Columbia. Played rugby on our honeymoon, both of us. So
that doesn't surprise me.
It's been very varied, but if there's a different place on the world to visit, we'll go there.
But we always take our running shoes, or make sure there's a gym somewhere where we can train.
I was about to say, can you actually just chill for a week, or are you the
no,
kind
God,
of people
no,
who
not anymore.
It wouldn't be chilling. I'd be wherever we go. If we can find a gym or something, then we'll train in a relaxed fashion.
Yeah.
And then we'll go and have a lovely meal.
Just part of your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I wouldn't drink, and I wouldn't look for a pub or anything like that, because it wouldn't be fun. I'd never get to sleep that night if out. I've just gone off. I used to drink loads after rugby matches when I was younger.
Yeah.
But now that I'm old, I find it just makes me dizzy, so I just don't bother with it. So that's not that kind of holidaying isn't really for me anymore. But then again, you know, who does it at this age?
Mike, I've just seen a question come in from you about weight training. That actually was covered early on in the chat. So I will be posting a recording of this. So if you want to rewatch,
weight training is good. Do plenty of it.
Yep, definitely. I concur to that. And just finally, just drawing on your sort of years of experience, what advice would you give to someone new coming into the sport?
I think what I mentioned earlier about joining a forum, or, you know, a community or a group of like-minded people is essential. It just keeps the motivation going. You know, you get good tips and hints as to how to do things. You know, obviously you do get a mix of different you know, experiences on those forums, so you have to make sure that, you know, you get, if you're looking for solid advice, you seek out the right people. But I just think generally it's just a nice way of, you know, you learn so much from them, but not just the online communities, because obviously that's something you can do on a daily basis. But I think actually attending some of the race events that are laid on, and there doesn't seem to be as many now as there used to be. There used to be a lot of regional, you know, sort of local small competitions where you could, you know, try out, you know, a 2K race for the very first time without feeling that you're under too much pressure.
Yep.
They seem to have fallen by the wayside a little bit, but there's still enough around. And even going to some of the big events you learn so much. You meet a load of people there. You can talk to people face to face, which is much better than, you know, sort of just texting and, you know, using Facebook all the time. And yeah, you just learn so much more that way. And I think that that's really important if you're starting out.
Also, there's a lot of information available online now, which we weren't. I mean, it's not as if it was a long time ago in the dark ages, but we didn't really tend to look online when we started. But we did find a forum that was very useful. It doesn't exist anymore. And these were the days before Facebook. But now I would recommend that when people just first start, alongside what Carol said, in the very early stages, there's so much research you can do. So just look up, just Google the words beginners rowing. What do beginners do on the rowing machine? Just put it into Google. All sorts of things will come up, and just read. Look at the Facebook groups, use the search boxes, put in words. Feel free to ask anybody anything.
Yeah,
I would strongly suggest people ask more people than just me, because you'll only get my view, and I've been known to be wrong in the past.
Just remind us again, Rod. It was Phil Mafitone, and who's the other guy? I've just
Stephen Seiler, Seiler, Seiler. Polarized Training by Stephen Seiler.
So get a heart rate monitor for those new people coming through.
And get a heart for new people. Get a heart rate monitor, and then you'll know what we're all talking about.
Brilliant. Has anyone got any more questions that they would like Rod or Carol to answer? Silence. I think we've covered most things.
I've bored everyone to death. They're all asleep.
Oh, thank you very much, Marcos. Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time, Rod and Carol, and I hope it has been sort of interesting and beneficial to everyone. If you have got any questions, obviously just ping us some messages after. I will hopefully be hosting quite a few interviews in the sort of the coming weeks. Obviously, I've got Eddie, who is very kindly interviewing. But also on Wednesday night, 6 p.m, I'll be doing an interview with a sports injury specialist. So we'll be looking more about what happens to the body during endurance training. So have your questions ready for that. And, you know, just hopefully you'll be picking up advice on how to stay injury free or dealing with current injuries. So he's a very knowledgeable man, and he's kept me injury-ish free for a bit. So yeah, 6 o'clock on Wednesday, but I will be posting to remind people. But today, thank you so much, Rod and Carol, for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks, Graham. There's my old mate Phil Morris. Got me into Mad Team.
There you go. But yes, if anyone's got any questions, just fire them away after this onto our Facebook posts or wherever. Yep. Thank you very much, all. And lovely.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Marcos, Phil, Graham, Martin. Good to see you all. And Kim. I think is that everybody there, Kim? Matty. And Milan, Harry, Matty East, and Len Wilkinson. Good to see you all. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thanks, gals.
Thank you.
Cheers, Heidi. Sweet soon. Bye.
Bye.